Matthew Steans, welcome to the 10 Million 10 Years podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Fellow podcaster.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is a bit more intimidating. Look at your setup.
I got cameras.
Well, though, to be fair, I can credit you for helping me get started, right? Because Luke Kermsey said, you need to go and talk to this guy, David. He'll be able to get you going. So thank you.
So here we are.
Yeah.
It's come full circle.
Yeah.
How long ago was that?
Oh, was that earlier in the year? Maybe end of last year? I was decided I was going to record 10 episodes before releasing it into the wild, just to have that bit of time ahead. So I think I started releasing was it end of May?
Oh, yeah.
Possibly. But very interesting, right?
Yeah.
I mean, part of the work I do with the Yarnsman is about creating opportunities for men to experience life through good yarns. So I feel like my yarnsman skills are developing along the way about how to ask better questions and be comfortable in silence to try and nurse out a better answer, right?
I like it. Tell us about the Yarnsman.
Yes,
backstory.
A massive thank you to Casbolt's Motorcycles here at 6 Gasson Street for sponsoring the episode of the 10 Million in 10 Years podcast, authorized dealer of Honda and Ducati motorcycles.
Dive right into the beginning. So intense start to the story, and I come with a trigger warning for most things I say. But be 13 years ago, I was going through a period of depression myself, I guess I witnessed a suicide one day and lost a friend to suicide not long afterwards, and that really set me off on the crusade to do something about it. My background's corporate treasury and management consulting, so data and tech and lots of money, and I used that to really inform decision making. So I thought, why couldn't we do something similar in the suicide space? I moved to the UK not long after that experience, and there was a couple of things that sort of stuck out to me. One was, why is it that guys only talk at stupid o'clock in whatever state of mind? And the other one was, I went to a book launch. I know you're big into books, so here's the first book recommendation is Johann Hari's Lost Connection. And the whole idea is that depression or anxiety comes about from a loss of connection, whether it be to people, places, purpose, or an identity from along the way. And so from there, tried a few different things, but we launched Stigma Statistics to enable suicide prevention through data and technology. We had a web-based platform for the collation, sharing, and analysis of suicide data, and we sold that into local authorities in the UK. Had a bit of success, and we were enabled bereavement support for over 100 families. Selling into local authorities is bloody tough, and there's not a lot of money in this space, and also reporting on suicides is a bit grim. So we moved into developing suicidal behavioural monitoring technology for public places. Hugely fascinating stuff. So we had advisors that had watched hours of CCTV footage in and around the rail to understand the patterns in the lead up to a suicide attempt. And without saying what it is, it's, by moving around to make it look like you should be there, you stick out. So we had contracted some Internet of Things beacons to pick up the presence of smart devices through Bluetooth and Wi-Fi, and our model was to kind of process all that and alert services to intervene. We had some pretty big contracts lined up with British Transport Police and Network Rail, but unfortunately the third-party IoT provider didn't deliver what they said. So that was, at that point, I became a successfully failed entrepreneur, but still continuing in the mission. For me, it's about being passionate about solving the problem as opposed to the solution. So tried a few other things along the way. And I'll skip over a few bits and pieces, but I moved back to New Zealand 3 years ago and was really looking to continue the work. I'd done a lot of stuff in workplace wellbeing in the UK. So my last role before I broke the shackles of corporate world, I was at EY in London, and M&A with corporate treasury, and there wasn't a lot of that going on at the start of the pandemic for EY anyway. And I set up the mental health and wellbeing strategy for UK and Ireland. So it's really about keeping people well and happy. And when I moved back here, wanted to continue all that work. And the first thing we did was we launched, or the precursor to the Yarnsman was Hope Upstream Charitable Trust for the research, evaluation and development of suicide prevention initiatives. And we tried a few different things, did some research into the space of where we could play, local for local and doing in person and something meaningful. But there's a few things that became apparent. There's far too many hope charities in this country. And so I guess I can thank those other ones because we raised probably more money than we would have otherwise.
Before we get into the episode, I just want to say a big thank you to Tom Hardy for supporting this episode.
Thanks, Dave. I absolutely love what you're doing, and thank you for having me be a part of it.
Tell us a bit about this new sign.
Mate, it's all about the people. I've loved making the move and getting great results for our clients.
Wicked. Let's get into it.
The word hope is kind of overused in this space, but it's really good if someone's in a really dark place that they have hope. Then there is hope for them. And really, we were high level and waffly of what do you guys actually do. So last year, or about this time last year, we ran an in-person event. I shared my story in a bit more detail, had a bit of food, a bit of a Q&A, and then we broke out into pairs to answer 4 questions. What have you struggled with in the last week? What do you want to work on in the next week? What are you proud of and what gives you hope? And the feedback was fantastic, right? A bit of anonymous feedback. This is being the data guy. I always want to know what's going on. And it was along the lines of, I want to reflect to you on the strangeness I felt in the evening. That's the most intimate I've felt with another man, just taking turns listening whilst not trying to provide a solution. Felt so alien. Can't describe the feeling, but I think it was a positive one. Fantastic. So from there, dropped the hope upstream and really focused on creating opportunities for men to experience life through good yarns. I've set the goal of yarning with every working age male in Christchurch over the next 2 to 3 years. So it's like, 110,000 people, directly or indirectly. And, we're going about it in 3 different ways. So I've got 3 tiers, great yarns. So big kind of community awareness stuff. We're looking at doing a big kids bike-a-thon at the Velodrome in March, and a few kind of other things like that. Then the good yarn, so we'll keep up doing our monthly in-person event with a guest speaker, and we do some social experiments. So I've been running coffee and yarns where I connect people to meet for coffee and do the full questions and things like that. And then the kind of main charitable purpose will be social prescribing. So for those that don't know what social prescribing is, you can go to a medical professional and they will prescribe you a non-clinical, non-medical script. So is it go and spend some time in a community garden, connect with the men's shed or whatever it is. And so ours is going to be socially prescribed yarns. We're working on a pilot with Pegasus House and 4 medical centres in St. Martin's. We'll be about connecting in with the community and having better yarns. So I'm really excited about this.
Wow. What have you found through doing the in-person events specifically?
Connection happens best in person.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I can't be on all the yarns, but, it's really about getting people, being open to vulnerability and creating that trust. For me, it was like what we were talking earlier. I'm getting married soon and something will go wrong, inevitably go wrong in events. But if you keep it sort of light touch and create a good process and a good brand, then it sort of all flows nicely.
Yeah. Where do you think the lack of vulnerability or the fear of vulnerability comes from? Where do you think that stems from?
If we kind of look at masculinity of, you don't want to look like you're suffering or that you might need help. And it's sort of that soldier on and, be as successful as you can and work really hard and it'll get through that. And I know through, my corporate career, that was certainly to be successful or what was seen as successful would look like, hours at the crease. We're actually now we realize we can be more successful if we're open about what's going on and asking for help or seeing if someone's struggling and talking to them about it. We can get to a mutually beneficial outcome.
Yeah. Do you think that different societies in different countries have a degree of variation when it comes to that, when it comes to vulnerability?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. What countries do you see as being more open to vulnerability?
Well, I could probably only talk about it from my personal experience. And I think about, when I talk about my story when I was living in the UK, I felt at times they were probably 5 years ahead of where we are here.
Really?
Talking about, I think of when the situation I was in Auckland all those years ago, and talking to people about what had happened, it was like stiff bloody rigor mortis is set in, whereas in UK people are a bit more open to it.
Yeah.
I guess that comes with people more, there's more role models, people are comfortable talking about it because they've seen with someone else. Yeah,
I guess it varies, of course, right? It's hard to put a blanket label or spectrum over a whole country, but just curious, right? I'm just curious because I guess having lived in Canada for a wee while and here, just sort of seeing those different cultures, similar but quite different. I'm just a naturally curious person, so I often just wonder, and I guess myself, I don't mind being vulnerable too much, like maybe more so than others. I don't know. I just get fascinated by these types of conversation, these kinds of yarn.
Yeah, so there's a really interesting one. Someone was telling me about, there's a documentary around blue zones in the country, around the world, of where people are most happy. And I think they profiled one in the States, and I was really shocked about it because I didn't expect it from there. There's a whole thing around lived experience. So what have people experienced in their lives? And have they experienced having a good yarn with someone? Has someone given them the time of day? But it's a really multifaceted thing, right? And then you kind of go for some of the more perhaps Asian countries aren't as open to talking about it because it's that work hard thing.
Yeah.
But and collectivism versus individualism as well plays a big part into that, and that differs greatly by country and by culture.
Yeah, I'm just reading a book at the moment called Two Peaks or Two Mountains. Two Mountains, and it talks about that. It talks about the difference between individualism and collectivism, or groups, or that type of different cultural thing. But where are you at with this challenge of 110,000 working males?
We're a wee way off that. Wee way off.
Does that include the podcast though? Podcast listeners?
Well, maybe that'll come into it. We need to get more granular with some of our reporting down to Christchurch, but we're actually working on a social health index for the country with Research First. So that's the whole thing of what gets measured gets done. Massive fan of that. And so if we can say, well, we're still working on what the makeup of the index is, but if we can improve that through our measures as well, I think that'll be a big thing. Of course, it will be by region for the country as well. I'm hoping that through some big events and some big partnerships next year, we'll be able to crack that. Yeah, I love it. Yeah, I'm a big fan of what gets measured gets managed. Just recently started some of my own dashboarding just around this kind of stuff, right? Like health and fitness, how does it tie into sleep and alcohol and activity and work levels, and how does it all correlate, right? And then if someone asks you why you're doing that, well, you're like, here's the research, here's my data. So much of that, our work we've done before, it has to be data or research or evidence informed. So that's sort of been really fundamental. Also in my career, doing a business model, doing a business case, doing a business model, you need that data to support that, or at least just be stating your assumptions anyway. Yeah. But it's even better if you've got data to back that up.
Yeah, totally. Given what we've been doing recently with these 1 year predictions, if we were to have a crystal ball and predict 12 months time from now, September next year, 2025, where's the Yarnsman's going to be? What's the state of it?
Oh, I like that question. Well, we will have... So I've got 3 problems, right? 3 challenges.
Just 3?
Well, yeah. Well, how much time have you got? The sort of 3 ones is, with the Yarnsman is the suicide prevention piece, and I believe that'll happen just as we go, and we can do more suicide prevention, not talking about it. The second one is community development. So how do we do this in a meaningful way that's not cringe or anything like that? It's beneficial. And then 3, what's the business model that supports all this? So that's quite a meaty challenge. So when I look ahead, I'm like, if I've got a sustainable organisation that's improving the social health of men, which in turn is decreasing suicide rates, that'd be really fantastic. So I feel a year out is too short. You know, we would have come through a successful pilot for our social prescribing. I'd like to think that we will have, there'll be a couple of employees, and we will have, there'll be some money coming through the doors, and we'll be really helping people.
Yeah. I mean, it's a heck of a noble cause, and I can not really speak from being on the verge of being suicidal, but I think there's a continuum, like there's a spectrum, right, when it comes to depression and mental health, and like I think everyone's on there somewhere, right? I think we can all relate to having better days than others and going through hard times, and like, it's part of this dashboarding process, right? Is how to try to manage that and how to detect things that lead to low mood. So, I'm all for what you're doing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, that is the thing too. It's a journey. It
is a journey.
The dashboarding and things. Yeah. Hey, look, one day you might have a worse sleep than others, and it's I suppose being aware of that. But I think you building a community as well. Community is such an important part of belonging to something or being connected to something.
Yeah.
And when you're in that space, you can connect with people. You can see when someone else is having a bad day, and you can ask them about that, right?
Yeah.
And that's the cool thing.
It is cool. Yeah. It's pretty awesome to have built this emerging community through the podcast, through the events, and just seeing people that are now interacting with one another through that is the catalyst. Like that's pretty satisfying.
Yeah. Well, for us, we have our conversation cards, and the one that's been the coolest is people telling you that, they left it on the table, and their 7-year-old daughter picked it up, and they had the yarn with them over breakfast, or it's that throw it out there, see what happens, and when people are connecting outside and talking about it, that's a really cool thing.
Yeah. I think the word yarn or the word conversation, it's something that comes up a lot in my day-to-day, whether it's through coaching or the podcast. It's kind of like the precursor, like the upstream event for a lot of different things, right? Whether it's a sales interaction or a hire or a pod, anything, right? Like a lot of things do start with a conversation, don't they?
100%. And what's really funny for my journey on this sort of, save the world, going from trying to sell behavioural monitoring technology to governments to now just trying to facilitate good yarns, there's a human aspect to it. And there's that Kiwi culture thing too, right? Let's pick up the phone and have a yarn. Well, I'd much rather do it in person. And give... I don't like the term create space, because that's why I say create opportunities, but you've got to create some space and time to really sit down and have a good yarn. Yeah.
Why do you think you don't like that term?
Oh, it's just a bit fluffy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Create space. It's like, nah, not for guys. Like, let's go and have a yarn, right?
Yeah. It's true. Yeah. I quite like it though, because I guess like it's the opposite of like busy, noise. It's like, hey, let's like creating space to me doesn't have a negative connotation.
So I'm really conscious of the language we use around the yarnsman. If we're focusing on working age males here in Christchurch, I think that's the one thing to be conscious of, is the everyday man thinking create space. That sounds, what's that? That's right. That's a bit fluffy. I'm not interested in that.
Yeah, right.
So that's just being really, I'm probably over conscious of saying the wrong word, which would be probably funny to some people, but yeah.
Yeah. How have you noticed new attendees to the events? How have you noticed the new attendees like fitting in? And
this is an interesting question, right? So the one I like the most is the missus bought me a ticket.
Oh yeah.
And I was coming along, I wasn't really sure.
Didn't really want to be here, but the missus.
But it was really good. So and we've had that version of I didn't what I was getting into, but that was really good. The cool thing is, we have GPs or psychologists sending their patients along. That's why we've kind of ring fenced the social prescribing, but we got a wide range of people, and people generally come back for more than one. The speaker will bring their people as well, but Yeah, no, it's been really positive.
Yeah. And what have the speakers generally, have they, what has the speakers been generally talking about? Is it their journey or is it?
Yeah, their journey, or their journey or their journey supporting someone else.
Yeah.
Yes, there's been some suicide, but there's been other things as well. It's people just sharing a yarn of what's happened in their life with a message of hope.
Yeah. 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 A lot of good things can come from a yarn. Like I was reflecting on this about 2 or so years ago. It was I was fresh out of a role. I was figuring out what to do with myself, and I had a yarn with a friend of mine, and it was I guess a looser connection at that point. It wasn't someone that I knew super well. And it was one of those ones that I was almost fearful to approach them, right? Because I was like, oh, they're probably busy. They're probably, they won't have time for me. And so I followed through, did it. And then like, it just was one of those sliding door type moments, right? It was such a good uplifting conversation. It just opened my eyes to a whole bunch of possibilities. And it was something that I was like so glad that I pushed through that fear to do. I don't know what the purpose of that story is. I guess just to maybe follow through if you are feeling a bit of discomfort.
Well, I was going to flip that back round to you and go, did that change the way you have yarns going forward? That feeling of like, oh, wow, this is what happens. So in your coaching and your normal life, you changed it kind of had an impact?
I definitely think so. I think it's just highlighted to me how one conversation can really change your trajectory, and especially if you're in a bad state or just a flat state, like that one conversation can really send you on a different journey. So, yeah.
I think about, one of my, he doesn't like being called an advisor. He wants to, his term's sounding board. I stew about a problem for 3 months, and I meet with him for coffee, and he sums up the problem and provides a solution in 5 words. And you're like, well, that was a bloody good yarn,
Yeah.
Like, that's powerful.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I guess I get that a lot, right, with what I do, and it's pretty cool because it doesn't feel like work per se, but I guess that's sometimes what we need is that sounding board or that external party
getting us out of our own heads.
Yeah,
and sometimes when you say that thing out loud, you're like, oh, it's actually not that big a deal.
Totally. Yeah. I was interacting with ChatGPT this morning, and I prompted it to be my harshest critic. I was like, oh, that's a bit of a spicy prompt to use. But it was the most valuable, actually. It was really insightful. Not one that I'd normally use because, we're all sort of scared of rejection and failure and whatnot, right? But I found that it was exactly what I needed to hear. It was tempered. It was kind. It wasn't totally savage, but it really did give me some insight into some things that maybe I wasn't doing that I could be doing.
Well, I like the way you said you prompted in the right way. That's where a good question comes in. And so our questions are not what's up with you, what's wrong with you, what have you done? It's what's happened in the last week. Indirectly can start it, and it's not confrontational.
Yeah,
and I think that's the big part of it too.
Yeah, subtle but meaningful, right?
Yeah. And ask a follow-up if you need to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, dig if you need to.
Yeah, like what's the sort of common thing about going to the doctor, where it's the third thing on the way out the door as to what you want to talk to the doctor about.
Right. So you've got a couple of decoy problems that you bring up.
Well, it's just anything else. Oh, and yeah. You're going to need to book another session for that, but yeah, that's right.
Right, yeah, gotcha. Right. And what about your podcast? Tell us about that.
Yeah, so the Yarnsman podcast, and really I was conscious of the fact that I'm a massive extrovert, and to introverts coming along to an event might be daunting, and I really wanted to spread the yarn and kind of talk to as many people as we can, and so really it's just a continuation of that. It's more conversational style, and I get a lot of value and personal enjoyment out of doing it.
What's next on the podcast?
Well, I'm really fascinated with social health. So that's, connection. You have physical, mental, spiritual to some people with social health. So part of it, I'd love to be interviewing more social science / social economists in that space. as well as our kind of usual, and then anyone else I find kind of any other initiative or anything that we might find interesting that we could use as social prescribing.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been a learning journey, and just even getting the tech rights are really really interesting. The editing, don't sit on a creaky chair, have 2 microphones, all that good stuff.
Yeah. It's just a process of learning through doing, isn't it? I think a lot of things, you know, what's that saying? Like, you can't learn how to swim by reading a book.
Yeah,
it's a bit like that. I think with podcasting.
I mean, it's still a lot of googling to find out what to read, what to do, but you still got to try these things and what works best for you.
Yeah. What would you say to someone else listening that's on the verge of starting a podcast or considering it?
Well, I think the piece of advice I had was that Kiwis are the biggest consumers of podcasts. So it's like, well, if you've got a good yarn to share or you know, good way of going about it, get out there, because someone might find that interesting and worthwhile and connect with it.
Yeah. Have you heard from listeners that have listened to them, and have you had much like validation or positive? Yeah,
it's the like, oh shit, I didn't think you'd listen to it.
Yeah, I know, and that's the funny thing about putting out content on the internet.
Well, that's right. You're just never sure where it's going to turn up, and that's that you can get further reach, and it's a bit more personal. You know, people might be scared to come out and have a yarn with someone, but like listening to that, hopefully it'll start to resonate. I know all the podcasts that I listen to, I try to get something out of it. It's like what I read too. I want to get something out of it to, to help me on my journey and or a problem I'm working on.
Have you got a favorite podcast?
Oh, it changes all the time. I'm big into Between Two Beers at the moment, just because we'll probably get them to speak at an event last year. But that's sort of something that if I'm going for like an hour and a half walk, or I'm driving for a decent amount of time, then you actually really get into it. And there's been some good nuggets in there that kind of like, oh, right, yeah, I might try that, you know?
Yeah. Do you listen or watch it?
Listen,
yeah.
Yeah.
Do you watch any podcasts?
No, I haven't got into that. Other than watching your reels, of course.
Oh, good answer. Good answer. Well played.
Yeah.
What about books? You got a standout book?
So I try to read a lot. It all depends on how much headspace I have. If I'm really stressed or busy, I can't take any more in. But for me, you know, there was the Johann Hari, but sort of an up from that was Togetherness by Vivek Murthy, who has been, or it still is, the Surgeon General in the US twice. So it was like a kind of level up from that. But yeah, I try to read non-fiction about what I'm thinking or working on at the same time to help me level up.
Yeah.
You know, and of course to throw in your deep work and atomic habits in there they were found fundamental in changing the way I was operating. So no, it's good.
Yeah, Atomic Habits often comes up. I think it might be one of the world's greatest sellers in the non-fiction category. Can you confirm that?
No, I wouldn't know.
No,
I mean it does keep coming up. I think the deep work and I can't remember which one it was, but as deep work where you've got 4 hours of willpower a day. I love that. I wish I could have that in a data point. How much willpower have I got and where am I going to spend it? Right?
Yeah, interesting, isn't it?
So I try and design my day. I haven't been good at it lately, but designing my day and making sure I get that deep work. Yeah.
I really talk a lot about that with, energy and time being quite separate commodities. Essentially that's what we're talking about, right? Having a certain amount of capacity to make decisions and be productive or be creative or just be 100%.
Yeah.
And it's a lot less time than I think most people believe.
Yeah, that's right. That's why kind of the 4 hours thing, I've got that. I've only got 4 hours. So if I'm going to do this task, I'm going to set things or set less things in my day to make sure I've got more time to do that thing.
Yeah.
But it's an art more than a science. Designing your life to do that, right?
Yeah. Do you find yourself to be a morning person or an evening person?
Yeah, I'm very much a morning person.
Yeah, gotcha. Yeah, I think I think that plays into it as well when you're most on, so to speak, right? Yeah. Any inclination to write a book?
Yes. I'm playing with a few ideas, but I think there's something around, the story of the yarnsman, the art of a good yarn, But, or maybe something in the social prescribing space, and we're very open to it. It just has to be something that's interesting and worthwhile that people will actually listen. Do we need another book for the sake of another book? What's the saying that there's a saying that every man's got a marathon, a novel, or a prostitute in him?
I've not heard that one.
And so every man it's two of the three. So you decide which
two
one.
of the three.
So I might run a marathon next year and write a book.
yeah, nice. Oh, good times. Yeah, I think a book would be good. Yeah. I think that'd be a good exercise. And I guess just like a bit of marathon, right? It's just like committing to something and seeing it through. Reading a book at the moment called Key Person of Influence that talks about that. It talks about writing books and how a book is like this binary thing, right? It only counts if you actually publish it. If you get 99% through a book, it's not really a book, is it? And it has no value. Well, it could have value, but...
Do you read digitally, or do you read actual books?
I listen to books and I also physically read books.
See, I think there's something cool about having a bookshelf.
Yeah, me too.
With actual books.
Me too.
And so... Yeah, I wonder how actual published authors feel about the whole, reading on a Kindle or whatever versus having that. There's something about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've had Kindles and digital readers for years now, right? But yet the physical book still holds a place, doesn't it?
So there's something special about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Like it definitely hasn't been phased out, and it doesn't seem like it's going to be phased out either.
And so for us both liking the feel of a book and all that, there's probably a book in us.
Yeah. Yeah. Have you tried the digital reader?
I have. I've gone to buy a Kindle a ridiculous amount of times and just not gone through with it. And I don't know why that is. I think it's just spend all day in front of a screen. I don't want that.
I agree. Yeah, something just off about it, right? Practically, it makes so much sense. The fact that you can have a device that has unlimited numbers of books makes a lot of sense.
Well, we all have that regret of we've gone away on holiday and we've lugged around this big book and they're not open.
yeah. Good intentions, right?
Yeah.
I feel the same with those. What are they called? The digital notebooks. The Remarkables?
Yeah. I think I put some money into a crowdfunding campaign for when they first came out on, was it Indiegogo or one of the previous ones? And then it was like a pre-deposit, and then I never went through with it. I would keep looking at them, and I've never gone through with it. I love having a notebook too.
Yeah, me too. Something about it, right? Something about actually committing.
Yeah. I mean, doesn't mean you can always read my writing, but
there's
a process there.
There is a process, yeah. Speaking of energy, so if you've got 4 hours of quality energy, we'll say, how do you go about managing that? Anything you've found particularly useful?
Well, I think for this, like we've built up good momentum over the last year, and we're not. It's all self-funded at this stage, so I have to do other bits and pieces to pay for my coffee and petrol and all that. So that eats into some of the time that I would perhaps do other things. Previously I'd always done mindfulness and meditation, but I kind of felt like I clocked that. Back into running in a big way now, and I think I look at parts of my career, I've always been the most successful or content and successful when I've been running. So a lot of my time is spent making sure now that my body's in good nick for running.
Nice. Yeah, I like it. Yeah, I've recently been doing quite a bit of running as well, and similarly, just such a good way to just get clear and creatively as well. I found it really useful for that. No earpods, no music.
Are you going with that? Right. So I still like the music because sometimes I need a bit of a kick, but it's I wish I could be writing that down. Can we take it? I can't have a panting thought on the voice note.
Oh no, I do that. I do that.
You do that?
Yeah. Well, I read this thing recently. I was like, the human brain is really good at coming up with ideas, but it's really bad at storing them. And I was like, oh, that's so true. That really hit.
Shower thoughts. I have a thing where if actually I do a lot of deep thinking in the shower, and sometimes I'm like, I don't know how long I've been in the shower before, but we've come up with something good. I might need a whiteboard or something else in the shower too. I love that.
Yeah. No, literally, I've started running with my phone again just for that reason of making panting voice notes. Yeah. Don't want to stop and like text it, right? But
I think you should perhaps release an episode with some panting.
I don't know.
Voice
I don't
notes.
know if the listeners need that in their life, but it's been useful to store those and to reflect back on them. There's the occasional good idea in there, and I found that it's quite useful to start with an idea, start with like a challenge or an idea before going on the run, and then just through the process of running, it seems to start working.
Couldn't agree with you more. Likewise, I would like to stop some of the notifications about half an hour before I go to run. I'd love to do this, I haven't done it yet, so that doesn't impact on my thinking time, right?
Yeah.
Having a challenge to nut out through is, that's a good way of going about it.
Yeah, I think it's similar to going to bed with a challenge, like having an idea or having something that you're working on so that subconsciously you can process it while you're sleeping.
Oh, yeah, it's an interesting one. I've got enough challenges, I think, going on that I want to go straight to sleep.
I had this question come up. I don't know if you saw this on my LinkedIn, but I'm going to bring it up because it's a good one. The question is, if you had all the money that you needed, what would you be missing in your life?
Wow, that is a strong question.
Shout out to Cam Irvine for that one.
So I think in the times where I have the least amount of money, I'm going to say least amount of earning. I'm earning the least amount of money. I've been the happiest.
Ooh, really?
One of my last corporate jobs, I had a pretty stressful job. Insert place and title. It just wasn't for me. And then I quit. And then I went and worked in my brother's warehouse, picking and packing shoe orders. And I was like the happiest I've ever been for 5 to 6 weeks. And then my brain kicked in again and I was trying to run his company, but like
right.
those times I think about it now. And so there becomes how much do I need? So when I'm building the planning out the business model for the Yarnsman, I don't need to be earning heaps. I'm in a pretty lucky position where my fiance, well, soon to be wife, is she earns well and has a good job, but we don't need a lot, So there's a thing around what's content for me. So if I had I don't know what I would be missing in that particular moment. As long as I've got good connection in my life, then I'm happy.
It is a thought-provoking question, though, isn't it?
Yeah. It's sort of I might need to think about that some more, but I probably spend a lot of time thinking about that question in the way I've just described.
Slightly different lens.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess that whole word content inevitably comes up, doesn't it? What is content? And is it possible? Is it possible to be content?
But this is the thing of if you're chasing something, which we all are, right? How can you be content in the process? As opposed to always chasing a dragon. I think, if you think you've got your 10 years, there's a process and being content in that process. I'm maybe a bit of content for me comes through experience. This is, I don't know, venture number 4 or 5. And so I trust in the process now a lot more. It's about, I'm content if I've got the right people around me.
Yeah.
I've got the right connections. Then I know, then I believe it'll happen because it has or hasn't happened before, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Someone commented on that post something about money and how most of us, we do have enough money. So it's almost like we're already there. And so then it's this real question, which is why are we still chasing that next thing?
Do we need that extra thing? Is it really going to make us happy?
Exactly. And I think deep down we know it's not. But we're still chasing. Some deep questions here.
Yeah, that is a real deep one. Maybe we could add that to one of the question cards and see what we get.
Maybe. Yeah, I'd be curious. Yeah. I think, as I mentioned at the start, I'm just a naturally curious person. And so I think these desires that a lot of us have are maybe from society, maybe from our peers. I'm not sure, but I'm just curious to keep on unlocking this.
Yeah. Well, and as am I, and I know a lot of other people are. I think one of the good questions I saw come up the other day was, when in your life have you felt most alive? There's another really powerful one, right?
That is a good one. Do you have an answer for
that? I think about sort of high point in my corporate career. Was running a lot, socializing a lot. I think about times when, getting that first contract with one of my startups. I think about times of being around family and friends. Going to things like Glastonbury, but it's I don't know whether you actually could technically say I was still alive, but no, it was no, all those good things. I guess I do chase experiences, so that's
Yeah, and I guess that can mean a totally different thing to a lot of people, right?
100%.
Like for some people, an experience might be something super zen and peaceful, whereas Glastonbury might be on someone else's list, right? Yeah,
and reflecting. Like, I think at different times of the year where you might be walking through a park and seeing leaves and certain sunlight, that's like, oh wow, that's cool, Yeah. It is completely different to person dependent.
Yeah, I've tried to be a lot more present lately, just with, say, running and just noticing nature and just trying to be a bit more in the moment. Yeah, I'm well aware of the addiction to devices, and I guess if it's in nature, then it's a really obvious juxtaposition between, say, device, office, business environment versus nature. And so just trying to optimize those a bit.
But you still need to be being present in the moment. I think about times when I'll be really busy or there's a lot going on, and I've walked around and I'm like, oh shit, I don't remember any of the walk or what have you. So it is a hard thing to do, to kind of snap yourself back in.
Got to make some space.
That might be why I hate it, is I'm not very good at it.
Maybe. Well, that is a theory, isn't it? The things that trigger us are often the things that we're either not very good at or we need to work on.
Oh yeah, but I think that whole thing's a journey, right?
Yeah,
it's always a work in progress.
Yeah, totally. Very good. Well, that's a good episode.
Yeah, thank you very much. Good yarn.
Yeah.
Good questions.
When's the next yarn?
So 7th of November, we have James Lachlan.
Oh yeah.
He's coming to share his yarn.
Cool. Is it on the same day of every month, or like the first?
We try to, but it's sort of speaker or dependent, or things like that. But try to keep it like that. Yeah,
same venue or different?
Yeah, so we do it at Two Thumb on Manchester Street in the back room. So it's like we go into the pub and it's kind of hidden that way.
Yeah.
So it's a cool environment. But we'll look to kind of ramp up and do some different events, and that's the whole thing. Is we're at a stage where we can try some different things.
Yeah, cool.
So watch this space.
Just quickly, and off on a bit of a tangent, but is there alcohol? No alcohol? Is that a factor?
Low or no alcohol?
Low or no, yeah.
Look, I mean, but there is at a bar, so you can that can happen. We're actually working on a project to build what I'm calling the Yarnsmobile, which is a motorbike with a sidecar and a coffee machine on top. So to be out, that's a unique way to start a yarn, and we can host that at different events or for our social prescribing. So
wow,
watch out for that.
Motorbike with a sidecar and a coffee maker.
Yeah,
wow.
I mean, I still have to get my motorbike's license, but watch out for that. I'm looking forward to like the old leather goggles and that kind of thing.
What kind of coffee machine?
A La Mazzocco.
Oh, really? I saw like a proper one.
Yeah. Well, because I mean, it's still got to be a decent thing.
Yeah.
I think we're all coffee snobs in New Zealand, so it can't be shit.
Can't be shit at coffee. No. Wow, what an adventure! What a journey. Well, I'm looking forward to the 12-month recap. Seeing where you're at then. I like this idea. I like the time capsule concept. I like that. It's always amazing to see what you can cover in a year.
What's the saying? Most people overestimate what they can do in a year and underestimate what they can do in 10 years.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, I need to get probably better with planning out of what I can do in 3 to 5 years. But
yeah, maybe. Yeah,
we'll see how we go.
Get those goals.
Down.
Very good. Well, thank you, Matthew. We'll link your podcast website. We'll link it all.
Cool.
Toby will.
Yeah.
Thanks,
appreciate
Toby.
it, man. Yeah.
So good. All right. We'll see you back in the next episode.